This audio program is presented by Audible.com. Audible, audio that speaks to you wherever you are.
Phoenix Audio presents
The Private Diary of Lyle Menendez, as told to Norma Novelli with Mike Walker, edited by Judith Spreckles, conclusion by Pierce O'Donnell.
I can move a jury, I think, more than most of these kids and him because I'm I don't know, I get very emotional and I just, I don't know.
Yeah, I think you will when you get there.
I could try to list reasons, but I don't like to do that, but,
yeah.
I just affect people more.
Yeah.
The way it is. And I can affect people in a very negative way sometimes, affect them in a very positive way. People like that, it depends. And I'm obviously going to just be myself and affect them in a real positive way.
Right.
And I hope it comes across real good. I think that it will. And
yeah, I'm sure it will once the time comes for you to get there, and you'll be nervous and stuff a little bit. And it'll all...
I want to show them how much I believe in what my past, how much I feel for it.
You're right.
All the pain involved, and there's no way any DA is going to get me to, it's stupid. I'm thoroughly, I'm a product of what happened.
Right.
And I just feel like I want to make sure that the jurors understand that.
Yes. Yeah.
And every time I feel real sad, like today, I cried a lot today.
Did you?
And I feel like, there's no way that I'll be on a stand and a jury not believe what I say.
Right.
They're going to absorb what I say.
Absolutely. They're going to be hanging on your every word.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't give a fuck how many people lie, which they don't have that many people, but they have a few people, or how many people come forward on my behalf for all the arguments and opening statements and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You got the person sitting a couple feet away from you, and they're telling you things that are very hard for them to say, are very embarrassing, are very difficult. And they're telling you that because they need to. They have to. They're being forced to in a way, but they need you to know. And, that's, I can easily, I always envision a jury that finishes hearing me, and then sends a note to the judge saying, we don't need to hear anymore. We're ready to give a decision.
Right.
We don't want to hear anymore. We don't want to spend another 4 months here. And that's what I want.
Yeah.
And that's what I believe will happen. I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
And now here's Mike Walker on murder and the Menendez case.
As a lifelong journalist, or voyeur for hire, this I can tell you truly. Nothing gets the heart pumping quicker than taking a brisk walk through the mind of a killer. Ah, yes, murderers. The killer elite, the big leaguers of crime, famous outlaws who did it, went all the way down the taboo trail and snuffed out human life. We peer into the eyes of these beasts and we're horrified, disgusted, and perhaps just a little bit thrilled. Oh, we gasp, how could anyone do that? Next question. Could I? There's no denying our morbid, dare I say, fatal fascination for the mind of the murderer. We love our death dealers. They are unique, not like other criminals. Crime reporters and whodunit fans enthusiastically study the quirks and aberrations of the lesser or less lethal outlaws. It's fun finding out what makes thieves, thugs, and perverts tick. But those pale minds won't suddenly pounce and make you shudder. What sets the man-killer's mentality apart is a cold, focused intensity, an hypnotic beacon that sucks us in as our imaginations thrash helplessly. In the world of publishing, only cookbooks sell better than Murderer's Most Foul. Which tell-all tome would you buy? Jim Baker's unholy confessions of fleecing his faithful sheep, or a real-life Dr. Hannibal Lecter drolly describing his most unspeakable lamb sacrifices, Clarice? For most of us, titillation ain't half the fun of feeling your heart thump wildly in the dead of night, while tucked safe in bed, of course. The cold-blooded murderer rattles our cage. It's not the killing itself that rivets us. We easily accept that the most peace-loving human being can muster up the savage bloodlust required to blow away enemies in wartime, or that a mother will kill quite ruthlessly when defending a child. But what about the man or woman who doesn't look like a monster, yet suddenly commits murder in cold-blooded calculation? Zip, you're dead, Skippy, because I just decided to play God. Who are these killers? And how the hell do we recognize them? What if they're normal-looking people like, say, Lyle and Eric Menendez? These are two seemingly innocuous California surf and tennis boys born into a prosperous family, headed by a hard-working father and a mom who stays home. But suddenly one night, Lyle and Eric turn up at their Beverly Hills home carrying shotguns, and they methodically fire so many point-blank blasts into their parents that the family room literally becomes the smoking, bloody entrance to hell. The minds of murderers. When my publisher first suggested this book about Lyle Menendez, I hesitated. I'd just chronicled an accused killer behind bars named O.J. Simpson. How was this different? Going back over the Menendez case, I remember when it first grabbed national headlines. Like a few million others, I immediately thought of the old joke about the kid who kills his parents, then throws himself on the mercy of the court because he's an orphan. Ha ha! The joke's on Jose and Kitty Menendez. Lyle and Eric really did kill them. That fact is not in dispute. But the boys want mercy, because they claim horrible sexual abuse by their parents. So unlike O.J., this isn't a case of an accused killer behind bars. These guys did it. They just want the jury to set them free. A book about Lyle Menendez? No, thank you, I told my publisher. My exposure to the megalomaniacal inner song of O.J. Simpson had just resulted in the New York Times #1 bestseller Nicole Brown Simpson, Private Diary of a Life Interrupted. I was exhausted, and I was sated. Enough with big-time murder cases, I told myself. Then I interviewed Laura Schiller on my national talk radio show on the Westwood One network. Schiller is the mastermind who put together O.J. Simpson's book, I Want to Tell You. During our interview, we reminisced about his most famous project, the jailhouse manuscript written by murderer Gary Gilmore, that had inspired Norman Mailer to write his astounding book, The Executioner's Song. Schiller, as Gary Gilmore's agent, had first sold serial rights to the National Enquirer. I'd been the first writer, even before Norman Mailer, to sift through those searing documents. Nothing I have read in my life, nothing, has ever affected me so viscerally. Never have words on a page frightened me, made me shake and sweat, and endure nightmares for months after I edited them. Why? Well, read Mailer's book, and you'll feel the spooky threads of horror this manipulative killer uses to weave soft, paralyzing blankets around his doomed nymphette teen girlfriend Nicole, his family, his friends, and fans. Mailer's book softens Gary Gilmore's tale somewhat, layering in sympathetic context. Before graduating to murder, Mailer learned, Gary was a charmy, smarmy, small-town thug whose life had been shaped by brutal childhood abuse. Unlike Mailer, I had no context when I first read the unexpurgated, unedited manuscript of this heretofore unknown white trash killer. That's why his writing hit me like a panicky scream from hell. This guy reached out through iron bars and grabbed your throat, shrieking, "Listen up, bastards!" Unlike Charlie Manson, a kind of garden-variety geek who can barely keep his pseudo-sinister rap intelligible long enough even for quick TV soundbites, Gary Gilmore could lay down words to make you tingle and buzz. Before his execution by firing squad, he wrote of goblins and ghosts visiting his cell, then of becoming a ghost himself. He described how, alone in darkness, he transmogrified in a burst of energy and propelled his spirit through the night sky. He'd materialize in his girlfriend Nicole's jail cell, miles away, and possess her sexually in the hours before dawn. And it's painfully clear in Nicole's letters to Gary that she believed it. Hell, I almost believed it. And therein lies the essence of the murderer's mind, the driving need to control other human beings, even if you have to kill them. And even when you're as good as dead yourself. Ah, yes, the minds of murderers. I'd been hired twice in my journalistic life to safari into the psyche of the beast and send back written reports for armchair voyeurs. Reflecting on those adventures with Gary Gilmore and O.J. Simpson, it slowly dawned on me that I was a pawn to my own premise. I mean, who can resist the deluxe, all-expenses-paid tour inside the killer's mind? I was playing coy with my publisher, but who was I kidding? Here was my chance to stalk and observe a truly exotic man-killer, the parent slayer. I called for the tapes and transcripts. There were years of tape-recorded phone conversations between Norma Novelli and Joseph Lyle Menendez, popularly known as Lyle. I had followed the shocking case closely all the way through the trial. I remember how people couldn't believe two such clean-cut guys could have killed their mom and dad, and how easily people confused Lyle with his younger brother Eric, until you explained that Lyle is the one who wears a toupee. When I started editing Lyle's conversations with Norma, I wondered if my premise, that killers' minds have a commonality, was about to blow up in my face. Would Lyle Menendez reveal himself as the cold, manipulative megalomaniac who settled for nothing less than the total preservation of his own ego at anyone's expense? Or was he a decent guy caught up in a tough situation that had momentarily shoved him over the edge? Another thing to consider: these were tape-recorded phone calls, not written journals. There's absolutely no doubt that Lyle knew Norma Novelli was taping him. So, the possibility existed that he consciously hid his innermost self, knowing his remarks would someday become public, or even suspecting that his line might be tapped. This was different than the situation I had encountered with Gary Gilmore, in that I had edited his actual writings, and it differed from my research into O.J. Simpson, whose mind I entered through the medium of his former friend and confidant Faye Resnick, whose book I co-authored. Was Lyle playing hide-and-seek? And would I be able to find him? The answer, though slow and hitting me between the eyes, was predictable. It's a time-honored concept among reporters and cops who don't rely on rubber hoses that if you let them talk, they will reveal themselves. A person who lets an interview go on for a long time can't help exposing themselves to the experienced interrogator, even if they don't answer specific questions. In hundreds of hours of listening to Lyle Menendez coldly manipulate Norma Novelli, turning her into his literal handmaiden for more than 4 years, Lyle Menendez couldn't hide the ruthless, controlling mind of the murderer. As Norma herself put it, I knew all along I was being used and controlled by a master manipulator, but once you are drawn into a vortex, there is no way to extricate yourself, no way to come up for air. You are trapped. And it's not as if Norma was some mindless do-gooder who believed Lyle was a sweet, innocent boy. In fact, she reveals, quote, "He knew I thought he did it," long before he finally confessed to the murders. Even more astounding, Lyle knew that Norma never believed his sudden revelation of sexual abuse by his parents. Said Norma, "We had talked about every subject you can imagine for a couple of years, and there was no mention of molestation. It was obvious he was practicing on me, but he knew I wasn't buying it." In March of 1992, as Lyle carefully honed his 11th hour parental abuse defense, he showed Norma a piece of paper on which he'd written down types of abuse children suffer. Then he produced a photo that had appeared on the cover of the LA Times magazine of him